Welcome everybody to Very Important Geeks, where today we are geeking out about the 7artisans 60mm macro lens. I'm excited. And a little scared. Alright, first of all, let's talk about build quality. This thing is built like a tank. It is solid, all metal construction. Even the rings, the focus ring, the aperture ring, it looks like they're all machined out of the same metal. And it's super smooth. It's a very nice, buttery, smooth, linear, stepless turn, both for focus and for the aperture. Admittedly, this is the first 7artisans lens that I have bought, and I don't know much about them, and it looks like they make budget-friendly, entry-level sort of lenses. Now this lens is primarily designed for mirrorless cameras with APS-C sensors, but it should work on all the major brands: Sony, Canon, Fujifilm, Panasonic, and even Nikon Z-mount. This is an all-manual lens, so you'll notice there's no electronic contacts in the back there. There's also no weather sealing in the mount, nor is there weather sealing around the aperture or focus rings. Even though there's just a 1-to-1 macro lens, they do sell extensions that make it 2-to-1 or 3-to-1 if you want, without having to buy a whole new lens and take up another space in your kit. It's got a minimum focusing distance of 0.26 meters or 10.23 inches if you're an Imperial Stormtrooper. This is roughly the size of a can of soda. It weighs 1.2 pounds, so that's 550 teddygrams for you metric people out there. Before we talk about the elephant in the room, go ahead and drop a like and a sub. That would really help me out and let me know what sort of content you guys like, and it helps drive my decision of what kind of videos to make in the future. I think it's time we talk about the that. Now obviously this is the zoom mechanism that you can see here. This is not unlike many other telephoto lenses. They'll also zoom out and get longer or get shorter depending on your zoom length. It's just kind of very awkwardly shaped, I'll definitely say. If you remove the lens cap there, you'll see that it's just a tube actually. The lens itself is still way in the back. In fact, you can unscrew this tube and the actual lens element is just right there. It is moving in and out of the body of the lens. But you can see, I don't know if you can see that, but once you take the tube out, you can see the interior zooming mechanism. It's pretty heavily greased, so don't put your fingers in there or anything, but I guess that's what keeps it nice and smooth. Now, I thought I read somewhere that this tube is meant for underwater photography, like you could submerge the tube and still take macro shots of whatever's under the surface of the water, but considering that this is not weather sealed in any way, I don't think I'm going to be testing that in any of my shots. In fact, I definitely didn't, I can tell you for a fact, but, well, should we do it? Maybe we should do it. Let's take a look. Join me, won't you, while I potentially ruin this lens. I dropped a rock into the bottom of this picture, and as you can see there, that is a macro shot of a small inclusion within the rock, so definitely doable. Things to note: if you're going to try and do some underwater photography with this, just don't. It's not worth the trouble. Just pick up whatever's in the water, throw it on the ground, take a photo or video of it right then. Too easy. Second, there's actually a line or a little groove. It's actually where the tube screws into the lens itself. You definitely can't get water past that, otherwise you'll get very, very close and probably leak onto the lens. Second, when you pull this out of the water, definitely don't just turn it straight up like this. Keep it pointed down, let the water drip out, dry it. Even better, just go ahead and remove the tube entirely, let it dry completely, and then put it back on. And absolutely do not retract it back into the body while it's still wet. So let's take a look at some of the shots that I was able to get with this. Things that it does well: when you can get your subject in focus, they are pleasingly sharp, like very good for a value lens of this caliber. There's definitely going to be some color fringing and chromatic aberrations at this level, but something you can correct in post as well. It was never too bad for me. Now, for all you bokeh lovers out there, it's nice and creamy bokeh, admittedly, but the shape is fairly irregular. It's not going to be a nice perfect circle. If you look at the aperture blades themselves, they are going to have some slight corners and edges to them, so you get almost like a 10-sided circle thing, a decagon, I guess. Things I didn't think it did well. The lack of in-body stabilization on one, my camera, and two, the lens body itself, means that at a macro level, any minute shake or movement is just magnified like 10,000 times. So it's really best if you can keep your camera perfectly still on a tripod or mounted some other way where it's not moving, you don't have to touch it. Second, there's such a small, shallow depth of field available for focusing that it's really easy to overshoot and undershoot it. So unless you get perfectly there and maintain it, any slight movement or adjustment in placement is going to cause a giant blurry mess. And the actual depth of field itself, while the center of it, if you can nail that focus, is nice and pleasingly sharp, going out towards the edges, it gets a little messy and a little over blurry, like soupy is, I guess, how I would describe it. That doesn't always look good. I found that it is correctable if you stop down just a little bit. If you're shooting wide open at 2.8, it's going to be much more of a problem. As far as value for money, if you can get this thing used, and even for 160 bucks, that's not a bad deal for a pretty good quality macro lens. If you're just getting into photography, want to experiment a little bit, or just want to add something a little spicy and low cost to your kit, I would definitely recommend this. Gets the geek thumbs up. So kudos to 7artisans for continuing the push to make like affordable, pretty good quality lenses, good value for money lenses. I'm looking on the website and I see they have a whole bunch of other stuff, which I'm really excited to try now that I've cut my teeth on this one. So I'm always a big fan of making like affordable entry-level stuff because not everybody has the money to spend on a G Master or something like that. So, you know, at some point, good enough is just good enough. Unless you're comparing a lot of things side by side all the time, or you're blowing your portraits up to like huge billboard sizes, sometimes it's just not worth it. Pocket the $2,000, invest it in upgrading your camera later. And thanks as always, guys, for watching the video. Drop a like, drop a comment, drop a sub. I'd really appreciate it. Also, check me out on Patreon if you want to support the cause. Right now, every review comes out of my pocket, so I'm limited to what I can afford at the moment. But it also helps me know what sort of stuff that you guys like seeing from me. Till next time, geek out.